Welcome to Finding Joy in Education, the podcast that celebrates the positive and uplifting stories from the world of education. I'm your host, Sarah Painter, honored to be your guide on this journey through the bright spots in classrooms and schools across Pinellas County and beyond. As the 2022 Florida Teacher of the Year, I've had the privilege of witnessing incredible moments of inspiration and passion within the education community. In each episode, we'll bring you stories that showcase the remarkable work of educators, students, and schools, highlighting the joy, the creativity, and the innovation. Whether it's a groundbreaking teaching method, a student's triumph, or a school-wide initiative making a difference, we'll uncover the heartwarming tales that remind us why education is such a powerful force for positive change. Join me as we dive into the stories that inspire, motivate, and remind us all that despite the challenges, there is joy to be found in every classroom. Because in education, it's not just about what we teach, it's about the impact we make and the joy we find along the way. This is Finding Joy in Education. You're listening to the Finding Joy in Education podcast. Today's episode is titled Finding Joy Through Early Literacy. And I'm so excited to bring to you a brand new segment we are calling Junior Joy. You will hear from 5 early literacy learners as they share all the things they love about literacy. Good morning, guest. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning. I want you each to start by introducing yourself. Say your name. Tell us what grade you're in, and I'd love to hear your teacher's name. I know. All right, go ahead.
My name is Iris, and I am in kindergarten. My teacher's name is Miss Dennison. My name is Leon, and I'm in kindergarten. My teacher's name is
Miss Fraunhofer. Wow. Well, thank you, guys. I'm so excited to have you here, Brianne and Iris. First, I'm going to ask you a question about where you like to read. All my questions are about reading today because your teachers told me you love reading. So, Brianne, where is your favorite place to read?
The park.
At the park? Do you have a spot at the park that you like to read at?
Yeah.
Yeah?
At the bench.
On the bench. That's a wonderful place to read. Iris, where's your favorite spot to read?
My favorite spot to read is in the library because you're only allowed to be quiet.
Oh, you like quiet space when you're reading? Me too. Do you too, Brianne? Quiet space when I'm reading. All right. Big question. Do you like books?
Yes.
That have pictures or words or both?
Both.
Why?
Because they're both fun.
What about you, Brianne? Pictures, words, or both? Both? Why?
Because I like pictures. You're going to see surprise when I say this.
Oh.
You can also know what the pictures and the story is about of the words.
Oh my, so you mean that they put those pictures in there for a reason?
Yes.
They tell us about what's in the book? Oh, I know, Brianne, my mind is blown. Okay. Are you learning to read words by yourself?
Yes.
You are? How does that feel?
Yes. Good.
What about you?
My mom helped me when I forget words.
Isn't that so great when your parents are reading with you? Do your parents read with you sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah.
My great-grandma read with me one time.
And your
I read my sight words.
I love it. Brianne, who reads with you sometimes?
My mom and dad.
Mom and dad. Okay. Close your book. Ready? This one requires you to show me your faith. Can you show me a smile that matches how you feel when you read a book? 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, your smiles are so huge. So you must love reading. I can tell by that smile. Well, I know that you brought a surprise today. I asked you each to bring your very favorite book, and I'm going to have you reveal those when I count to 3. Are you ready to show our audience what your favorite book is?
Yes.
Okay, you ready, Brianne?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to hold it up for me when I count to 3. Get ready. 1, 2, 3. Corduroy and the Rainbow Fish. Brianne, what do you love about that book?
The colors.
The colors. The colors catch your eye and they make you want to read. Iris, what do you love about Corduroy?
That he gets holding in the end.
Oh, and that's a happy ending. Do you like it when books have happy endings?
Yes.
I bet you do. Well, guys, those are all my questions today. Is there anything else you want to tell me about reading that we didn't talk about?
Yes.
What do you want to tell me?
That in stories, some people don't have to have just pictures. They can have like different numbers, and numbers can look like letters when you look at them very far away.
I agree. I think books can hold so much. They can have pictures, numbers, words, sentences, right? And as you get older, you're going to learn more and more words. Are you so excited to learn all the words there are to know? I can't wait to watch you guys grow as readers. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Can you say goodbye to our friends?
Goodbye.
Well, good morning, guests. How are you?
Good.
I'm so happy to have you here. We're going to talk all about reading. But first, I want you to introduce yourselves. Abigail, would you go first?
My name is Abigail. I'm in kindergarten. My teacher is Miss Fraunhofer.
Wonderful. Sophia?
My name is Sophia, and I'm in kindergarten, and my teacher's name is Miss Fraunhofer.
Oh, my goodness. And you, sir?
King.
Your name is King. Are you in kindergarten too? Who is your teacher?
Miss Fraunhofer.
Of course she is. The amazing Miss Fraunhofer, right? So we're going to talk a lot about reading today. So Abigail, I'm going to start with you. I want you to tell me, where is your favorite place to read a book?
Somewhere where it's quiet.
Somewhere where it's quiet. Can you pick a quiet place? If you could go anywhere right now and go read, where would you go?
The library.
The library. That is definitely a quiet place. Sophia, where's your favorite place to read? You don't have to raise your hand. Where do you like to read? Do you have a cozy spot at home or at school that you like to read? Tell me about it.
In the library.
You love the library too? Well, that's a fabulous answer.
Because I like to read grown-ups books.
You do?
Because I want to learn about another.
So you're trying to become the best reader you can be.
Yeah.
I love it, Sophia. I bet it's so amazing. King, where do you like to read your books? Where do you like to read them? Do you like to read them in your classroom?
Yeah.
Where in your classroom? In Miss Fraunhofer's class?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Do you have a special space that you like to read?
Yeah, we have a little calming down station.
I bet King loves that spot, don't you? Is it cozy?
Nobody ever goes in there.
Yeah, sometimes that happens, right? All right, so I want you to think about the kind of books you like to read. Sophia, you already kind of talked about this. Do you like books that have pictures, books that have words, or both?
Both.
Both. Why?
Because they look so amazing.
They look so amazing. What about you, Abigail? Pictures, words, or both?
Both.
Tell me why.
Because I like looking at the pictures, and I like imagining how I can do it, and I like sounding out the sentence. What was that one?
The pictures and the words? So tell me about the pictures. Why do you like the pictures?
Because then I can imagine myself doing that.
I love it. So the pictures help us kind of picture it in our head, right? King, do you like pictures or words in your book?
On book.
Words. Tell me why you love words. Do you love to read them? Are you learning to become a reader?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that must be so exciting. So I want you guys to tell me about how you're learning to read by yourself. Are you learning how to read all by yourself?
Yeah, by myself.
How does that make you feel?
Happy.
Happy, King.
Jinx.
Are you happy when you can read by yourself?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Ready? This is your chance to show me your face, King. I'm ready for you. Okay. I want you to show me a smile that matches how you feel when you're reading a book. 1, 2, 3. Show me is that your reading smile?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Is that your reading smile? Your smile couldn't get any bigger. That is incredible. Can't even hold it in. All right, well, it's time for our big reveal.
Yeah.
Are you ready to show me your favorite book? Okay, I want you to hold on to it, and I'm going to count to 3. And when I say 3, I want you to show it to me. Are you ready? Hold your book, King. 1, 2, 3. Ah! Show me your book. Oh my gosh, Pete the cat. Yours makes sound, Abigail.
Uh-huh.
Abigail, why did you pick that book? Why is it your favorite?
Because I like, so when I can read it, I get to press the buttons and I like it.
So you have the sounds, you have pictures, you have words. It has everything. Sophia, why do you love that book?
Because I love this one because the like mitzvah or read the Christmas rock.
Because your teacher read it to you.
Yeah, she read the Christmas rock. Yes,
Special.
I wish it at the first.
I bet. And King, tell me about this one. What do you love about this book? The cat. You love because there's a cat. Well, guys, those are all my questions today, but I'm going to ask you one last thing. Ready? Is there anything you want to tell me about reading that I didn't ask you? Anything else you want to tell me about reading? You just seem so excited, Sophia. Are you going to go home and read today?
Yes.
Yes, you're going to go home and read. Do you read to your stuffed animals or to your brothers or sisters? Do you ever read to anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at my elf cake today.
And your elf. Wonderful.
Yesterday.
Okay, I want you to look at Mr. Sean's camera and I want you to say thank you and wave goodbye.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Finding Joy in Education podcast. You're joining us for episode 7, Finding Joy Through Early Literacy. Joining us today in the studio, we have some fabulous guests. To my left here, we have Miss Jennifer Meckler. She is the Director of Early Childhood Education here in Pinellas County. Then we have Mr. Michael Feeney, Executive Director of Elementary Education. And to the right of me, we have Miss Kimberly Joel, our CEO of the Pinellas Education Foundation. Thank you guys for joining us today and being here. So I'm going to ask each of you to tell me a little bit about yourself. So we'll start with hearing your story. So Jen, what's your story?
Where do you begin a story? So I have something that hangs on the wall in my office that I wrote in 2nd grade that said that when I grew up, I wanted to be a mother and a teacher. My mom gave that to me as a college graduation gift, framed. And it's my reminder that this has been, while the path may be not typical, certainly something that I've always wanted. I went to college and kind of fought the desire to go into education, but then obviously ended up there. But then I claimed that I did all of my teaching, all but 3 years I did in kindergarten. So 11 and a half years in kindergarten.
Okay.
And then went the administrative route and was an AP and left my time as a principal. And then this opportunity came to work solely really focused on early childhood, which is how I got here.
That's incredible. I can't wait to tap into those 11 years of experience and hear how things have stayed the same and what's changed since then as well. Mike, what's your story?
So mine's a little different than Jen's. Although I did fight going into education. My parents were both educators. My dad was my middle school teacher. He was my high school assistant principal.
Oh my gosh.
And embarrassingly, I was the first student that he gave detention to. So that's a different story for a different day. But I went into the military. I went in the Navy for 4 years. And after getting out of the military, I really found the direction that I wanted to go. And so I went to University of South Florida, started teaching elementary, taught 4th and 5th grade, and then went through administration. And I've been in this position now for 7 years and absolutely love it.
I love it. Kim, what's your story?
Well, I am the different one at the table, not an educator, but my whole career has been focused around social services and providing some type of support or network of resources to the underserved. And so that's what beats my heart. And I've been fortunate to lead different types of not-for-profits in different arenas to help others.
And we need you. We need you and your organization and your heart. And I think when we tap into that, that's what unfolds into this beauty of finding joy in education, is having champions like you rallying around us and making sure we get what we need and using your servant heart to do that. So thank you for all that you do at the foundation here in Pinellas County.
I'm happy to do it. Thank you for making it easy for me.
Of course. You know, it is the best county to work in. So
Yes.
So Kim, I'm going to start with you. Our episode today is all about finding joy through early literacy. So we think about our students that are in pre-K through second grade primarily. So when I ask you about early literacy programs and the support that the foundation gives, what would you say has been the most impactful project that you've been a part of as the foundation?
I think without hesitation, it's definitely the work that we've been doing with the PELI, the Pinellas Early Literacy Initiative, from the VPK up until second grade, and the really focusing on that. But also, it's not just the student outcomes, but what we're hoping to provide for the teachers and that quality instruction and the tools that they have in their toolbox. So it's when I go out and talk to funders, matter of fact, Mike and I were just talking to a funder this morning, and every time we've met with this funder, he just goes over and over in awe of the numbers and the impact it has, and just how profound it is. And so it's really nice to be able to go out and celebrate those things and share that with funders.
Absolutely. Mike, do you have anything to add about the support you've seen from the foundation when we talk about PELI?
Well, the foundation has been amazing. They are our number one supporter when it comes to this work. And they really have been a collaborative partner, along with other partners that they've partnered with, right, to bring into this work. And we'll talk more about the impact and the number of schools. But without their collaboration, we wouldn't be able to do this work. And this has been life-changing work for not only for our teachers, but more importantly for our students.
Absolutely. Jen, what do you think about this work with the foundation?
I love, while it has challenged, and I inappropriately joke that it has almost killed me, that the work with the foundation has specifically allowed us to partner in that community space in PTK.
Yeah.
And taking our work outside of our schools and being able to impact community providers has challenged us to the core many times. But we have grown such great partnerships with our Early Learning Coalition, with the Juvenile Welfare Board, with many partners in this space. And to see, I was just on a ride along with one of our PELI coaches in the community. And to see that work alive outside of our schools, I think is huge. And without the foundation, that would not be happening.
And I think their primary goal there too is removing those barriers so that we have access to all of this for every student. So when we talk about partnerships in schools, perfect segue to our next question, Kim, how do you see these partnerships with the schools and the communities influencing the success of these early literacy initiatives?
Well, it takes money, so that's really important. And I just want to go back to what Jen said about the community preschools. I appreciate that she, complimented the foundation in support of that, but I hands down commend you and your team for the work that you've done in that space. Like that was when we secured the funding, it was part of the goal was to get 16. And you worked so hard at that and the relationships, and it was the difference maker for sure. So, I gave the money and you did the work. So it worked out for
See, we're a good team.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. But, one of the major funders of this initiative and in the forefront of the program design too was Helios Education Foundation. And when Dr. Beyer was the CEO for the foundation. And they included like an evaluation tool, but they really were thought partners at the table. And that's what we want, is partners that know it might take longer than usual. Like we wanted 16 community preschools in the beginning, but you take your lessons learned in the first year, you apply it to the second, and then we had success. So I think, you can't do this work. And I don't think it's, nobody should expect the district to do this work alone.
Absolutely.
And so that's, I think the the value we can bring is to secure those partners and help connect and collaborate together.
And we say it takes a village all the time, but I think you truly encompass that by bringing in the village surrounding the same vision, which I think is super important, that everyone understands what we're all working towards.
That's right.
And it sounds like you guys are key players at this table, making sure that that vision is shared among our stakeholders. Mike, so let's kind of shift to Pinellas County Schools. So what strategies or programs do you think have been most effective in fostering this early literacy initiatives in our elementary classrooms?
So, I mean, great question. And we go back, when we started the Pinellas Early Literacy Initiative, we started that in 21-22. But that conversation with Helios, with the foundation, started back in 1920, quite a few years ago. And so, but what we do recognize is that a lot of our funding had been put into grades 3, 4, 5, because that's where our school accountability is. But we also recognize, all of us who've been in education, that if we can focus on early literacy, that we really can change the narrative. And so with the partnership of the foundation, Helios, and even with the University of Florida Lassiter Center, is where we took this course to really focus on supporting teachers. Because one of the things that we do recognize, and I'm married to a teacher, teaching is hard work, right? And in elementary, you have to be masters of all the content.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the hardest things that we have to do is teach kids how to read. And that was where the partnership of the University of Florida, and we really started focusing on UFly. We started focusing on Flamingo. And we started with the 8 schools that first year, and then moved it to an additional 8 schools, and then moved it to two more schools in Clearwater after that. But the things that we've learned from that, we've actually brought out across the entire district. So all 78 elementary schools, for example, in kindergarten last year was a learning curve, and Jen may talk about this in a second, but there was a little learning curve as we took UFly across every kindergarten classroom across the district. And we learned from that. And we learned that our teachers need additional support to implement this. And so this year, as we went into grades 1 and 2 with UFly, they had an advantage, because at every school we had kindergarten experts who've been doing this for a year. But we also added an additional layer of support where we put anywhere from 2 to 4 additional days of coaching support for our teachers to support them as they do this work, because this is hard work, but this is the work that's making a difference and changing the lives of students.
And I love what you spoke about with the kindergarten teachers being the experts, because there's one thing that teachers are great at, and it's leveraging expertise in their building, right? So we don't have to leave our school to find out who's really good at something. And when you have that willingness to coach into other teachers, that's when you start to see huge changes at the school level. So, my new position this year is working with ESOL students. So I can't help but think of them when I think of early literacy. So, Mike, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how do we ensure that all students, including those from diverse backgrounds, have equitable opportunities to develop these literacy skills?
And that was really one of our key areas of focus. When we talk about this early literacy work, we looked at our Bridging the Gap plan, which we have in the district. We're on year 8 right now. And we looked at schools who maybe historically have been underperforming and needed additional layers of support. And we also looked for schools who have high percentages of EL, populations at their school, to provide them that additional layer. And so having a coach at every school supports the teachers and make sure that teachers are equipped with the skills that they need to meet the diverse learners that they have, because an EL student comes with, challenges understanding English, right? And so the different layers of support, are put in there. And one of the other things that we see, and Jen, is leads this work in VPK, going to the earliest of learners, right? That if we can get them into our VPKs and have them as completers, and a completer is 70%, right? That their learning achievement or their gap closes so significantly.
Absolutely.
So getting them to schools is so powerful.
Yes. I want to ask you to just speak a little bit to the Bridging the Gap. So you mentioned that we have listeners that are from all over the state, all over the nation, that may not understand that. So can you elaborate a little bit on that and how that plays a role in early literacy?
So our Bridging the Gap plan, like I said, we started this, we're on year 8 of our Bridging the Gap plan, to really close the achievement gap between our African-American learners and all of our learners. So right now we have an achievement gap of proficiency between our different demographics. And so we've added layers or action plans around that. VBK is one of our action plans in the Bridging the Gap plan. Pele Early Literacy Initiative is also one of our action plans within the Bridging the Gap, putting strategies and practices in place to support teachers to reach all of our diverse learners and close that achievement gap and move them to proficiency.
Perfect. Thank you. You did that very succinctly. I knew you would do it better than I could. So Jen, let's talk about early childhood. So I want you to think about these programs and how they lay the groundwork for our literacy success before students even enter elementary school. Tell us a little bit about what you see happening and what's been fruitful for us here in Pinellas County.
Well, this work, Pele, right, begins really in VPK, but we often, and in my early childhood team, we have students as 3-year-olds, right? So the year before VPK.
Right.
So we really start this work prior to that. As soon as we have them, that's when we start. There's no time too soon to begin. But developing them as early readers, right? Being able to recognize a graphic, right? Or a letter, right? We see those as pre-literacy skills.
Right.
But also knowing how to be a member of a community, right? Of learners, and what this means to be at school and what it means to sit for a story with a group of people, right? What this means, we develop those skills very intentionally across their time in our programs so that when they arrive in kindergarten, right, for real school, to start that K-12 journey,
right,
they are ready because they already know all of those components that, once upon a time we learned when we went to kindergarten.
Absolutely. That's so great. I love the intentionality behind it. Like, we are kind of looking ahead and figuring out what do we do now so that in a few years' time, we'll be like, Thank you for planting those seeds now, because we are starting to see how that has blossomed across our district and helped us as well. Let's talk a little bit about parents and caregivers and the role that they play in early literacy. And I also want you to expound a little bit about any ways that you've seen schools doing this in an innovative way, including those parents and caregivers into early literacy.
Well, I think maybe twice already we've said it takes a village.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the most important things we have to do as educators is honor each parent or caregiver as the first educator.
Yeah.
They are the beginning. And just like we start with them as soon as they're ours, right, at 3, we have to recognize that 3 years came before us.
Yes.
Right. We start growing and learning as soon as we're born. As soon as we enter this world, we are learners. And honoring that commitment that has come before us, and then partnering alongside families. I think we owe families support in what it looks like to support their child as a learner without expecting them to be the teacher.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to, they had a whole day at school. They don't get to go home to do school.
Yes.
Right? But what can they do at home to support them to continue to grow in the classroom?
Yeah.
So those are things that we do. And I try to really work with schools around that idea of coming alongside.
Absolutely.
Either the family or caregiver, but the new challenge has been the community preschool provider.
Yeah.
Right? Come along. Those are the people that are working with the students that in the future, year, 2 years, 3 years, will be yours.
Right.
So what can you do?
Right.
I know that one gentleman sitting at this table with us used to go to a preschool that was a feeder to his elementary school as a principal to read. Was it like a couple times a year, a month? Those kinds of things are wonderful.
Yeah.
It's always more comfortable to get to know people when we put ourselves exposed in front of them.
Absolutely.
Right? Put yourself in a vulnerable position reading to a group of 2-year-olds. As Mr. Vini knows, like, they'll say anything. But that's the place that we have to be. The school district can be intimidating.
Absolutely.
And I always say I sit at the table as a friend and want to partner and grow that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But we're not. We all want the same thing.
Right. And not every family has had positive experiences. So I think sometimes it's rewriting that narrative and giving them an opportunity for a take two. Like, this is what it can be like when we make a partnership, when we take this as that village approach. Mike, did you have any other things to add about caregivers and parents and the role that they can play?
So as Jen said, I think one of the most powerful things that we all can do is build those relationships, because like you said, sometimes people haven't had positive interactions. Maybe it was their own experience at school. And so the earlier you can build those relationships with the students and with the community, and go to where they're comfortable, right? And make yourself vulnerable, and start building that relationship early. It makes all the difference, because once they see how much you care, because we all care, we all want the same thing. We all want students to be proficient readers and be successful in life. But when they really truly understand that, and they see the relationship and the investment that you're putting in their children, that they're great partners.
Absolutely. Kim, did you have anything you wanted to add about that role of caregivers or parents being involved in early literacy?
I just would add, even from the foundation perspective, we help fund some parent engagement activities at different schools. And so we understand the importance of that. So we felt that was important to secure that funding. And, the district, again, does a lot of the work around it. But it is about, we know that's an important element for the students.
And again, you're removing barriers to make sure we can meet the needs of all of our students.
We pay for the food, which is going to help get them there.
The foundation is willing to partner with you to bring the families in and make sure that they are getting this from the school community first, and partnering alongside them.
I would just add to that. I love that you brought that up, because that work that we're doing in partnership with the foundation allows us to equip families to partner, really, but remain the family.
Yes. Yeah.
We're not saying go home and complete worksheet.
Right.
Yeah. We're saying do this activity or have this experience.
Yes.
And let us tell you what's happening during this experience that's supporting your child.
I love it. That's so beautiful. I feel like we could stay here and talk all night about early literacy, but I know we are going to wrap things up. So we're going to end our time together by sharing some joy stories. So when I ask you to share your joy story, I want you to think of any interaction with a student, a teacher, an administrator, a colleague, anyone that kind of, when you remember this story, it grounds you in your why and reminds you why you are positioned where you are today. So Jen, I'm going to ask you to share your joy story first.
That's a hard one. Sometimes it's hard for me to focus on one, but I think in this position that I'm in today, my joy is when I have administrators. The path to the principal or assistant principal seat is varied greatly. And not many of our administrators across the district started in early childhood.
Right.
So sometimes I'm begging them just to be in the room, just walk in the room every day, right? Just go in and just enjoy that. That is scary to some people. I worked for some administrators that felt that way. But I think my joy comes when I receive a text of a picture that somebody's from an administrator in a room, or a story or an email of what they're finding.
Yeah.
Because they're partnering with me in that, going in and discovering that it's really the best place to be.
Absolutely. And we talk about a lot on this podcast that when you start looking for something, you'll find it. So when you kind of recenter your focus and having them look for that joy of early literacy, then they'll start to see it more
all over the place.
And all over the place. Absolutely. And then it's contagious. It spreads. Mike, what's your joy story?
So I have two stories, if that's okay.
Of course, you'll be the first guest to have two stories, but whatever.
I'll try to be brief. And there's a joy story at every Pele school. But the one that sticks out to me is at a non-Pele school. And I was walking the school with Kathy Brickley over at Curlew Creek Elementary. It was the first week of school. And she introduced me to the kindergarten teachers, and they were in the hallway having a little PLC. But then all of a sudden, some first grade teachers and second grade teachers came up to them and were asking them all these questions about UFly. And I could see the giant smile on Kathy's face as she just took a step backwards and let her kindergarten teachers and leverage that leadership. And that's what we want. And we talked about that, earlier. And so just seeing teachers supporting each other. And like you said, we don't need to go out and find somewhere else, right? We have it here in our district. So that's one joy story. The other joy story is this early literacy work is changing lives. We see it in the data. We have the best third grade scores that we've ever had. We had the best literacy scores that we've ever had. that changes students' opportunities. When they leave elementary school going into 6th grade as proficient, the doors open for them and they have so many opportunities. And so my joy story is we still have a lot of work to do, right? We have more students that we can still impact, but being able to have so many opportunities as they move into middle school is life-changing. And that's the work that we're doing. And it starts in VPK.
I love it. That's incredible. What a way to connect the dots, Mr. Feeney. Kim, joy story.
Well, I'm going to have 2 now, too.
That's not fair. I wanted 2.
I have 3.
I thought you were going to have 3.
I think that the first thing I would say is I get a lot of joy being inspired every time I walk into a classroom and see the wonderful work that's happening, the things that are in a classroom, the teachers' interactions, or we've taken funders on tours of Pele schools and seeing other schools there as well, like taking notes of what they're doing, and you see that. But I am inspired, truly inspired, by the passion and the commitment that I see in Pinellas County School teachers. But while it's a little bit off topic, it's relevant to when we're airing this. Is probably one of my biggest joys in my Education Foundation work has been, unfortunately, as a result of the hurricane, we had so many employees impacted, or you had so many employees impacted. And we started raising funds, but we had no idea what we would reach. And we thought $600,000 would be a lot. And we're at almost, I got a notice today. So we're almost at 1.1 million raised. And then another 600,000 that our board committed, which I'm really proud of our board, who, and the reason they did that is because they wanted to ensure that the staff who had been personally impacted by the hurricane had support. And so, we have given out almost 600 awards, and it'll be a total of $1.3 million given to employees to help them, rebuild and take one worry off, because I have seen these amazing people come to work when they don't have a home, they don't have a car, and show up for kids. And I will beg money. I'll go out every day and ask for money to help support that. So, but it's been a real joy to be able to provide that to them. It's never going to be enough probably, but it'll help relieve some. So.
Well, as a recipient of being at a school that benefited from that support that you helped raise from Eisenhower, I just have to say thank you for everything you did. We had, over 100 of our students displaced. And so you swooped in, but you asked what we needed. And so the trust was built to where when people started to reach out to us, we were able to point them to you and say, talk to the foundation, because we trust they're going to meet our needs. And we're a school, we have to function as a school first. So we couldn't filter everything ourselves. So knowing that we had that partnership with you and the foundation really took a lot off of our shoulders to be able to go back to being a school and making sure we're meeting those academic needs for our students, because you guys were taking care of everything for us. So thank you so much. That is definitely a joy story for myself as well, personally, and for Eisenhower. But I know across our district, you guys have done incredible work. And when we talk about early literacy, we wouldn't be having this conversation today without the support of the foundation, without the support of Mr. Feeney and Mrs. Meckler, and just that shared vision and the passion to make sure we are doing everything possible to have literate students here in Pinellas County, because of the doors that get opened when we make sure that is happening. So I think everyone at this table, we are so very grateful for your leadership, for your vision, and for the work and dedication you have put through for early literacy. So thank you guys so much. Hi, you're listening to the Finding Joy in Education podcast. This is episode 7, Finding Joy Through Early Literacy. Today, in our Finding Joy in the Classroom segment, we have some very special guests that work with our youngest students. So in the studio today, we have Brooke Fraun. She is a VPK teacher here in Pinellas County at Eisenhower Elementary. Serena Fraunhofer, kindergarten teacher, also at Eisenhower Elementary, and Mr. Ron Anderson, first grade teacher at Maximo Elementary. So welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you guys here today. So excited to tap into your expertise. I can't wait to hear what you do with the little ones. You know, my background is intermediate. I taught 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And so my first taste of primary or our younger kids was when I became an MTSS coach. And I would go into the classrooms and be like, holy smokes, this is a whole nother world. So I think it's always funny when intermediate teachers are like, I would never do kindergarten, and kindergarten teachers are, I would never touch 5th grade. And so I love it when there are people that have kind of done a little bit of everything and have a larger context of the role that they play. So let's jump right in. Brooke, I'm going to start with you. Could you tell us your story?
Sure. So, goodness, I guess it's been 22 years ago. I started teaching in Palm Harbor, and I was teaching a 4th grade class. And then I went on maternity leave after a couple of years for like 7 years. And
That's a long leave.
Yeah, it's a really long time. So then when I came back, it was a whole new world in education. So I started back in 5th grade at a school in Clearwater, and I seem to want to switch every 6 or 7 years to stay fresh. And so when I finished 5th grade, I decided I wanted to teach gifted. So I taught kindergarten through 5th grade gifted for 10 years. Wow. And then just about 3 years ago, I really started to get burnt out. And I had been doing a buddy system with a VPK teacher at Eisenhower. And I was amazed at what the kids could do. I had no idea that pre-K could do that. So I told my principal at the time I was ready to make a big change and I wanted to do VPK. And she literally flew back in her chair and said that's the very last thing that she thought was going to come out of my mouth. So I've been teaching VPK for 3 years now, teaching the 4-year-olds. I love it. It is not easy. It's not my slide into retirement that I thought it might be. It's a lot of work, but I love it. So that's where I am.
You know, Brooke, you and I have had this conversation. I've probably mentioned it on a prior episode that I commend you for your bravery for switching, because I think that's a very brave thing to do with someone who knows this is their passion. You know you want to teach, but when you're burned out, what do? Yeah. You try something different. Right. Don't leave. Right. And so I love that about you. I love that instead of going, well, this isn't for me, you say this position isn't for me. Let me try something else.
So that's what happened when I was in the 5th grade position at McMullen Booth. I had been in it like 6 or 7 years, and I was like, okay, I have to make a change. And so I said I wouldn't be returning. And they said, well, where are you going? And I said, I don't have a job yet. And then I went to Canada for the summer and I missed the entire job fair. And then when I came back, they said, what are you teaching? And I said, I don't have a job yet. And so there was like 2 weeks left and they said, what are you teaching? And I said, what do you have open?
Yep.
And that's how I started.
I love that. I love that. And I talk about it often with my friends. That when you feel burned out, try something different rather than leaving, especially if you know this is your calling.
Yeah.
Serena, what's your story?
Well, I'm not from Florida. I was born and raised in Michigan. I chose teaching initially because I thought it would be a good job or profession for having a family and being a mom. But since then, my teaching has evolved and I've gotten more meaning out of it since the years have gone on. And after becoming a mom myself, my teaching changed completely, and how I engaged with the children and what I would want for my own kids with my students. And then it evolved even more after having a big health scare, and my outlook on life had changed. And I want to teach, like when I think about teaching and what my passion is and what brings me joy in the classroom, it's teaching the kids to be resilient. I think of the word resilience and how no matter what circumstances come your way, you always find a way out of it, and you find a way to brighten and make these children, be resilient in the world.
Absolutely. And I think what better place than in those primary classrooms where we're laying that foundation of resiliency, of we can do hard things and living it out every day and modeling that for our kids. That's where the magic happens. So
for sure.
So beautiful. Ron, what's your story?
So I discovered I wanted to be in education when I was in Tallahassee. I went to Florida A&M University.
Okay.
I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I was in between business administration and I'm not sure. And so I was thinking about it, and I grew up around a lot of educators on my dad's side. I've been administrators, principals, teachers. And so my family did a lot of community service growing up. So I was like, I think I could do this. And so me being a nurturing person and really being around that, I was like, okay, let's try it. So instead of doing secondary, I decided to do primary.
Okay.
And the reason why is because I feel like that's the foundation of education. And I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me in there.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, let's try it.
Yeah.
And so when it came to like my junior year of being in college through the program, I was conflicting between finishing my education program and then just trying to figure out, because I always hear people talk about, this 30-year plan. So I was getting so nervous.
Yeah, you're like, that's a long
time.
commitment.
And so I sat in my room. I was like, okay, let's figure it out. So I was between education and I decided I'm a musician as well. And so what I decided to do, I was like, let's finish education and get into it. And I was really enjoying it. And then so happened, my teacher I was doing my internship was African-American male. And I told him what I was doing. I told him I was conflicting between a couple of things. He was like, well, let's get into it. You're really good. I see your passion. Let's work through this. And I'm going to put a phone call into a friend of mine.
Wow.
Who ended up being a band leader. And so when I got my graduation money, he made a phone call for me. He was very proud of me. He was like, look, I have this guy that's looking for a drummer. And that's what I was. So I spent all my graduation money to buy a drum set. Yeah. Got me in. I got in with that band in that summer. And I started teaching and being a professional drummer at the same time. So my first 2 years, I was actually playing drum. I was doing like 2 gigs a week, 3 practices, and teaching. Have to be at school at 7:15.
And I think about all the little hidden nuggets of advice you could probably give your students through that, right? About pursuing passions, about doing what you love, but making academics and a pinpoint of like, this is what's important as well. So I just think about that. I also can't help but picture you bringing a drum set to Maximo. So I'd like to know how that looks.
My students really love rhythm. And so, getting the kids into it, and that goes into some of the creative things I do around the classroom.
Right.
They love to move. And that's the beauty of teaching first grade, because 6-year-olds, they want to be around, they want to move around the classroom and things like that.
Yeah.
So.
And that's exactly what I was just going to ask each of you about your classroom environment and how is it structured to support early literacy? So tell me a little bit about your classroom and what I would see if I were to walk in.
So I'm a very laid back person, but I also like to move, and I think my kids keep me young. And so I want to keep that innocence, but also like bring that creativity. So a lot of times when you come into my classroom, especially during like our small groups in the morning, it's usually level 1, which is a whisper, but I have my kids in different centers. So I have an iReady station that's usually on the floor. Kids are doing iReady reading most of the time in the morning for about 30 minutes. I have a word work center where kids are either forming some words, either sight words or building words with magnetic letters, practicing putting them in sentences. I have a free writing center, which also kids get a chance to free write. And sometimes, like right now, we're working on reading books and then taking a event from the beginning, middle, and the end. And so they're getting used to going through text. And even if they can't fully read it all the way, they're looking at pictures, that text and illustration thing, and they're writing out. And then also I have a table at the back where we're doing the flamingo small group, which I really love. And the kids seem to be picking up the different skills that we're working on. And it's just continue pushing that. And then I rotate them. We're doing 2 rotations right now.
So very intentional setup to make sure that literacy is important and at the forefront. Serena, tell us about your classroom environment and how it supports early literacy.
Well, I pride myself on building very good relationships with my students. So they know right from the get-go that I care about them individually, and I know their stories, and I become their school mom. So I'm always, they want to please you in early childhood. So I'm their school mom. I'm there to keep them safe, and I'm there to keep them learning. And so they know when they come into the classroom that they're coming into a loving environment. They're coming into an environment that it's okay to make mistakes in. We do so many fun things. We're moving around a lot. It does keep you young. We sing, we dance, we have movement. I like to have cozy areas where the kids, it's not necessarily sitting at a table doing something. There's cozy reading nooks. I like to do a lot of storytelling. So one of my favorite things to do with the kids, I love literature, children's literature in general. And I love reading books and changing my voice and making myself come alive. And the kids, I think sometimes I personally do it better than some YouTubers. So I'm like, we're not going to do that reading. I'm going to read this to you because I do the best voices. And the kids love when I share stories with them, especially when it's a story that's, just one of my favorites or one that's off, not in the curriculum or something that I just pull over and I'm like, guys, we have to read this book because it's so good. Yeah. So the kids really pick up on the relationship aspect of it. And once you got that relationship with them, they melt in your hands.
Absolutely. And I've seen it firsthand. Right before we went on Thanksgiving break, I spent some time in Serena's room watching her do her You Fly routine, and those kids did every single thing she asked them to do and then some. It was so beautiful.
It gives me goosebumps.
I love it. It's so beautiful. So Brooke, take me into your VPK classroom. How is it structured to support early literacy, especially with those vulnerable 4-year-olds? Like, what does that look like?
So my class is really just divided into different areas like other classrooms would be. So we have a writing area, and then we have different center areas, a big housekeeping, and then we have one that changes and blocks, and a giant gathering area, carpet and stuff like that. And we have things labeled in the class to help support that. But my co-teacher will tell you that it's just all the talking. It's just all the talking. So I'm really not talking to 4-year-olds. We're having full-on conversations all day long. And so even our children that came in that were strictly speaking Spanish are speaking so much English now. It's amazing. So I would say the conversations, the writing areas that we provide with little models for them to use. We've got quite a few books out, and so nothing in my classroom is off limits to them. So strangely enough, like sometimes I show up in my chair and there's a little kid sitting in my chair. I'm like, what are you teaching today? So it's their classroom. And so that's been the thing that, like Serena was saying, they just feel comfortable in there. So they know that they can just really go to any part of it, and they talk about everything, and they're asking tons of questions and stuff like that because they're not limited to anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest differences I've seen between intermediate and primary classrooms is you go into primary classrooms, they're loud. Kids are talking all the time. And then you go into some intermediate rooms and they want them quiet. They want them working independently. But I see so much happening in those primary classrooms that I want to emulate in the intermediate classroom.
Well, and I will say in the beginning, for me, it was a little bit of a struggle because when you teach intermediate, you are used to a quieter area, and then that's not the case in primary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some strategies for engaging young learners, because we know one of our roadblocks for our little kids is attention span, right? And how do we engage those learners, keep them wanting to learn, and making sure that we are tapping into their full potential so that they can become literate by the time they leave kindergarten, first grade. So Ron, tell us a little bit about some of your favorite strategies for engagement. I'm sure there's music involved here.
So I would say some of the favorite strategies I have is, first of all, just moving as much as possible. So we're going from the floor to our chairs, we're standing up, we're using hand signals every time we're talking. I'm giving them signals to make up for themselves. We do a lot of turn and talk. Yeah. And we're really working on social skills to really build up. So it's really cool. And then also definitely, engaging rhythm as well. So I have like bongo drums in a room. Sometimes I have people come to the carpet and sing songs and sing along with them. And so it really helps to let them know that they are helping create the environment as well. And it really helps move forward.
Serena, what about you? What are some ways that you can engage your young learners in literacy?
Well, I teach kindergarten for a reason. I love children, not adults. When I close that classroom door, I become my authentic self with them. And the novelty of everything when you're 5 years old, you can just add a dice to the center, and it's like the best thing ever. Right. Or a holiday eraser over here, and they're like, this is so awesome. So just changing it up all the time, very, very frequently. I'm changing things in my centers and changing things so that they stay engaged. And then the center itself I can keep it diverse or differentiated. So, it can be the basic sounding out a word or matching an uppercase letter and lowercase letter, all the way to, okay, now make a word that starts with that letter and put it in a sentence or something like that. So it's very differentiated. I love to teach problem solving skills. It's so crucial at that age because they don't know how to solve a problem. Right. And so I give them the tools and then I watch from afar and I'm like, I'm invisible right now. What are you supposed to do? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to go ask so-and-so. Yes, go try that. See if that works for you. And they'll go do it and they're like, and then you see them apply that the next time and the next time. And then by the end of the school year, they're, little independent workers. They could run the entire classroom on their own. And I really like that. The novelty, the dancing, the singing, the acting out. We do like the 3 Billy Goats gruff and we act it out and everyone has a part. I like to play Would You Rather with them where they're up and moving and then they get to explain themselves, their opinions. Today was the sugar cookie or the gingerbread cookie. Which would you rather eat? Right. And why? And then they would move around the room. They love that. And then we have Marker Monday every Monday, which is simple, but they come from the weekend and they have so many things they do over the weekend that they want to share with me. And I'm only one person. And so I say, share it in Marker Monday. So that they just blank paper and markers. They can express themselves however they want. It could be whatever happened that weekend. It could be whatever's coming up in your life. Just draw me a picture of it. I'll see it when you put it in your mailbox. Miss Ronhofer is going to see everything. And they really enjoy that too, because they can get it off their chest so that they can come in and focus on learning.
Yeah, and it sounds like I'm kind of hearing a common thread between Brooke and Ron and you, Serena, and that is that shared ownership, making sure that the students have a voice in how they learn, but also that relationship building. It sounds so simple, but knowing how they prefer to learn. So whether it's movement or changing the center with your little special eraser because that's what so-and-so, right? Like a spinner and a dice. So, it sounds like a no-brainer, but sometimes we need to be reminded to tap into the experts in our room. Yeah. That if we can find out what makes them tick and leverage that, it makes all the difference. And then, like you said, they're eating out of your hand. So Brooke, tell me a little bit about some engagement strategies you use with your VPK students.
Similar to Ron and Serena, a lot of movement, a lot of we're at the table, now we're at the floor, we're at the table, now we're at the floor. I think that we probably do that for every activity. Like we flip, not even intentional, but just to keep them moving. And they have the schedule down pat. Yeah. So they're like, oh, time for the carpet, time for the chair. And then engaging them with things like music and changing the centers and things like that. We were working on patterning and, they can do it with little blocks and stuff like that. But we decided to do patterning with a musical parade in my room. So we, yeah. We broke out all the instruments. They got to choose which one. Some of the little bells literally have the ribbons on them, the whole 9 yards. So we were going out of the room and we were doing this parade and, they had, I led, they followed, and then they could do it and then we would stop and then we'd switch and everything else. It was glorious. I loved it. And it was spur of the moment, so I love Marker Monday because markers are just coming out on Monday. Right. I love that it's the music because 2 minutes ago, it wasn't going to be, but now it is. Yeah. You see that they need to move or they need to do something. Yeah. So you really have to pay close attention to your kids and their body language and their behavior so that you know what you should do next. If you thought you were going to put on a little 2-minute video about plant life and you see that they can't even sit still, it can't be the 2-minute video about plant life. So you really have to pay attention.
It's that fine line between planning, but also having the with-itness to think on your feet, right? Yes. And that's a forever dance in education. It's like, I need to be planned and ready, but also ready to pivot at any moment based on the needs that are coming from this room, from this moment that I cannot always plan for.
And I'll tell you that, but that's not something that you can teach teachers. Right. And I've had so many people, like I write out all my lesson plans, but I've had teachers say, but where'd you come up from that? Yeah. Come up with that? And I'm like, my head. Yeah. And I don't mean it in any disrespect at all, but it's just that once you get comfortable with what you're doing and you know your kids really well and you have a really good rapport with them, it just pops out. Like you're learning about plants and suddenly you're like, oh, I think I'm going to do this with them. Spur of the moment. But you know that it's going to grab them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Eisenhower and Maximo both serve very diverse populations. So I want to kind of transition to how do we meet the needs of all of our learners? And I'm talking literacy. So I want you to think about teaching reading and teaching writing. How do we do that, especially for our students who maybe are already struggling? Maybe they're second language learners or have other barriers that prevent them from picking it up as quickly as others. So Ron, I'm going to give you a moment to tackle that question. How do you vary your strategies to ensure that there is equity among your students for accessing literacy?
I think the first thing I do is I have to do a lot of repetition and teach slowly. Also, a lot of small groups.
Yeah.
With my ELL students, a lot of visuals, and also using my resources. We have some bilingual teachers, so I go talk to them.
Yes.
And ask them what is the best strategy to communicate with families and the students, because I think the family is just as important as talk to the student. And just making sure I understand where the student is and giving them confidence to want to push forward by being positive and letting them know it's okay where you are.
Right.
Let's continue to move forward.
Yeah.
And I think with that, once they get their confidence up, it really helps them to push themselves. And then once you get the parents on board,
Yes.
it definitely helps to further. And then last year, I was actually really fortunate to be able to do tutoring after school for like an extra 30 minutes to an hour with certain students. And with the families being on board that way, it really gave them extra boost. And I've seen a lot of progress through doing those things. So
I love the way you engage your village, right? So you're talking about the expertise on your campus, right? So using your resources. I'm an ESOL teacher, so I love to hear that. I was like, yes, that's great. Because we do have a lot of strategies in our back pocket, but we're not always available in the moment to go do that. But if someone's going to seek us out and ask, what can I do? And we have time to be thoughtful about that and really plan that out, we can give you some great strategies and even come and support. And I know you have literacy coaches as well that I'm sure that you are leveraging in that. But families, that's it. Once you get the families on board and they know that you're working as a team to promote literacy, then that's where the beautiful things start to unfold in our room. So
I agree.
That's great. Serena, tell us a little bit about that differentiation. I know you kind of already mentioned it, but how do you make sure all the needs are being met?
Well, this year in particular, I have half of my population are ESOL students. And I mean, I don't mind working with them, and I think they bring a lot of joy to me, but I use visual schedules. A lot of the things he was talking about, picture support with independence, or to help them become independent. Vocabulary and gestures is huge.
Yes.
We just did a reading lesson today using our thinking superpower, and it was we read, then we think, and then we understand. And they did the fireworks over the head, and a lot of my ESOL kids were getting that, and because they don't always talk about what they're reading,
right?
And so now that they're able to decode the words, it's like, oh, now I have to talk. I can talk about what I see in this illustration and what I just read with these words. And they loved the gestures. The gestures helped them to remember that they have to not only read, but think as well. And also the small groups and honing in on, those kids that may be struggling and giving them what they need in that moment so that I can send them off and give them a little bit more to work on back at their seats. Partnering them strategically was also another big one, especially because I have half my class are, speak English as a second language. And so my Spanish speaking population, I have maybe a lot that are, some higher understanding English, and I pair them up with somebody who's maybe more zero language and have them discuss something. Like today in particular, we were thinking of a topic for a list book for writing. And I have a student who doesn't always understand what I'm asking, but he wanted the topic of Pokemon. And I said, okay, but we need to check and see if your list is big enough. And he was not understanding what I said. So I called another student who is able to translate for me. And I said, hey, ask him these questions. Ask him to tell you does he have at least 4 things to make a list book with? And he asked him. he responded, and then this student told me, and I was like, okay,
right,
you go.
you're good.
Send him off. And he went off and he was able to do it. So strategically pairing them is really good.
Yeah.
Also having a good model for them. Like the I do, we do, you do. I'm always using that strategy in the classroom. I show them first with my own, and then we do one together as a class, and then I send them off to do it independently. And I think that helps a lot of my ESOL students, but also my struggling students as well. So they get it, and I may have to pull over and work with them one-on-one or a couple at my table, but it helps them, and it's reaching them, and they're all showing growth, which is
that's exciting. That's so exciting.
Today it was during their U-Fly lesson, the whole group phonics instruction. I love U-Fly, and I'm one that likes to be a crutch for my students because I teach young kids, and I'm always like, I need
swoop in and help.
But the more that I teach and the more expertise I have in what I do, I'm like, I need to give them the reins.
Yeah.
So I tell my kids, I'm like, okay, it's time to, we're going to read the CVC words together. And I said, but Miss Fronover's not going to do it. And because I'm not going to do it, I'm going to cover my mouth.
I've seen you do it.
And I have to cover my mouth because I'm so used to just being that nurturing motherly type. And I'm like, but I know that these students have it in them. And today they read all the CVC words and blended them beautifully. And I stopped for a minute. I said, do you realize I am teaching you such a skill that you're going to use for the rest of your life? And that's what makes me so happy. It makes me so happy knowing that I'm instilling that in them and making them be better humans.
That's so great.
It's so wonderful.
I love it.
Oh, me too.
Brooke, tell us a little bit about your diverse learners and how you plan to make sure that they all get what they need.
So I think in my classroom, I have 17 children. I think 4 of them they came in with 0 language and were Spanish speakers. And then I have 3 with autism and 4 or 5 that are language impaired. So we've got all kinds of children in my classroom. And so I would say one of the big things that we do is a lot of one-on-one, but it's really informal. So if they're playing or they're working at the table, how I get down on the floor and get back up, I'll never know. But I'm really on the floor a lot, just scooting over to them really fast just so that we can talk about stuff, just informally. But also using a lot of pictures in the books. I do that a lot, and we talk about it. I use puppets. I'm learning how to use puppets. It's really like the most, but they love it and they hear the voices and then they really pay attention. I had a little boy today. So my co-teacher was teaching, second steps, which is like emotional, social. And she was teaching the difference between if something happens by accident versus on purpose. And so she was using these 2 little puppets. We have Mary Lou and Tony. And Mary Lou was pretending that she got hurt. And of course, Tony was going to respond. And so Mary Lou is doing her little crying. And one of my little boys that has autism says, "Oh no, Mary Lou, are you okay?" in his tiny little voice. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. So we use the puppets. We use a lot of books that have, really big pictures that they can relate to. I ask Siri on my phone a lot about Spanish words. And also, like a couple of years ago, I bought this trifold from Hobby Lobby. It's the English and the Spanish words. And so I'm forever flipping through there as well. So we do a lot of both English and Spanish in the class at the same time. I can only do like one word at a time. Correct. Right? So I'm saying go get your backpack, and then I say mochila. Yeah. So I'm learning slowly but surely. But all of that combined seems to reach both children that are struggling and children that have English as a second language. It's just all of them together.
What a blessing the 3 of you are. And I know you represent countless thousands of teachers in our county that are like this and do this work for our kids. But I just want to thank the 3 of you for highlighting these specific things that you're doing in your classroom, and to just let you know that it's making a difference. This is what we got into this for. And so on that note, we're going to end our time together by sharing our joy stories. So I want you to be thinking about a story to share with us as we wrap up this segment of our Finding Joy in Education podcast episode. So Brooke, I'm going to start with you. If you will share a brief joy story with us.
Sure. So the first person I want to share is Mr. Martinez. He was my 10th grade AP literature teacher, and he was a Spanish gentleman. Loved him to death. He did not own a television. He only owned a radio. He read everything. He was, a little bit quirky, but I just absolutely fell in love with his class. And that's kind of what led me into teaching. I thought, oh my goodness, if you can get through life without a TV, like that's amazing. Yeah, you can do anything. So he was really like a caveat for getting me started. Now the joy is from the kids.
Yeah.
And we created little cards with the kids with their handprints and stuff like that for Thanksgiving. And this is where you find the joy. So this little girl that came in this year was a zero language. And more and more and more, she's speaking English and Spanish. And so we interviewed every single child, and we said, "What are you thankful for? What can we put in your card for your mom and dad?" And she said, She said, "Dear mom and dad, I'm thankful that you send me to school every day because I'm able to learn English." And I was like, because I adore her. But now what I'm finding is I say the word in English, I say the word in Spanish. She shakes her head no, and she only wants to say it back in English.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she has, what are we, like 3 months in or whatever? Yeah. She has grown dramatically. It's the drive to want to learn.
Yeah.
And so that's where the joy comes from, is the kids, the drive to want to learn.
And that doesn't happen by accident, just so you know. That is the environment you've created.
That's what you hope for. Yeah. That is what you hope for, is that you're going to introduce these things and you're going to have such a connection with the kids that they want to do even more than what you asked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are my joy.
So precious.
Yeah.
Serena, give us a joy story.
Well, I have so many stories about things that have brought me joy just today. There's the kids make me laugh. They thought their name tag could scan them into the lunchroom.
Okay.
He goes, so-and-so, scan their thing. And he got in the lunchroom. And then the other boy goes, I'm going to wear my name tag tomorrow. I'm going to try it out. And I'm like, you guys are so silly. So it's always that you never know what you're going to get type stuff. Right. But also because we teach the youngest of the children, we get to see them grow through the grade level. So we get to watch them blossom into these beautiful humans. Mm-hmm. I have one that is my safety patrol now in 5th grade, and I taught her in kindergarten during masked COVID time. Yeah. And she's turned into this beautiful young lady who, helps me out. She's kind, she's considerate, all those things. But I'm going to leave you with a sappy story because that's who I am. I always lead with my heart. So I was teaching 1st grade at the time, and it was around Christmas time, and we were learning about opinion writing. And I was asking the students, in their opinion, what would be their favorite gift to get. And I'm jotting it down on an anchor chart. Oh, great idea. Hoverboard, a gaming system of some sort, skateboard, all these tangible items. And I called on this particular student, and I'm still friends with his mom to this day, and I'm watching him grow into this amazing human being. But at the time, I was going through my breast cancer journey, and I didn't have hair. And,
no.
And I was writing things, and I said, "What would be your favorite gift?" And he said, "For Miss Fraunhofer to get her hair back." And I stopped. And you said, I was done. I need to compose myself for a moment, and I'll never forget that boy and what he did to me. Yeah, he made such a big impact on my life. Yeah. And that's what brings me joy. Yeah. That's what keeps me coming back, is because I know that I'm making huge gains with these kids. Differences. Yes.
Oh
so
gosh.
Sorry, I had to. I had to. It's just what I am. Sorry.
Ron, joy story. Yeah, close us out here.
So first of all, I want to say I'm very grateful for the teacher that I met when I first started teaching my first year. So I originally went in to FAMU DRS, which is FAMU's Developmental Research Schools, K through 12. But I went in there to audition. I went in there to interview for a 4th grade position. Ended up getting persuaded for a kindergarten. Right?
Bamboozled or persuaded?
Persuaded because the principal and the superintendent told me that if I was to take it, I would get a full-time person to come in. I was a veteran teacher over 10 plus years.
Yeah, take it.
Mitchell. And so I was like totally thrown off because I wasn't really thinking about that. But she helped me so much. Her name was Miss Mitchell. And I mean, she showed me the passion and like just the giving of how teachers are and really like pouring into what she saw in me. And I was fresh, I'm in my early 20s at the time. So, I mean, she did whatever she could. She gave me all her resources. We talked every day. She popped in and checked on me. And I was just like, wow, this is what teaching is about. This is what we have to do for our students. And we're two adults. And she was like, well, if I see this in you, I know that you can do this for other students. So that's my first thing. And then fast forward to last year, I was doing my Flamingo master teacher certification. And I had these two young ladies in my class. And they were struggling all year just with like CBC words and just the fundamentals of reading. And I was just racking my brain about just all the things that I could do. I'm just switching different strategies, trying this, trying that, talking to their families, trying to get some background history to see how I could help them. And one of them was ELL as well. So I'm talking to her father, trying to get her to get on track. And she eventually did my tutoring. So they both ended up coming to tutoring after. But when I did my final observation for the Flamingo, and I had them both in front of me, we had like this pep talk. And I was like, ladies, you guys are
This is your moment.
We're confident. You can do this. And they went from CBC words to all these multi-syllabic words. I was like, I mean, they just looked great and they were happy. And they were tracking their words. I was like, wow, seeing somebody evolve that much from the beginning of the year to the end of the year is so mind-blowing to me. And I mean, that's what I live for. That's why I come to the classroom every day, even though it's a roller coaster from time to time. When you see those students progress like that, it's amazing. And that's what makes me happy, and that's what gives me joy.
I'm so inspired by the three of you, almost enough to want to go teach primary, almost. But thank you again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for giving us advice and kind of taking us into your classrooms and letting us see what that might look like on a daily basis. You have been listening to the Finding Joy Through Early Literacy episode. I asked my colleagues around the globe how they find joy in early literacy, and here's what they had to say.
Hi, I'm Leslie Talley, and I'm the 2022 Mississippi Teacher of the Year. As a dyslexia specialist, the focus and efforts of my professional career revolve around literacy. Providing instruction in early literacy at the foundational level is a particular passion of mine. For many students, reading and writing both pose great challenges. They are hurdles which children must overcome in order to be successful, not only in academics, but in life as well. Being able to provide instruction that helps support those children through their challenges is work that I consider an honor. I walk alongside them through the struggle and then take a step back when little light bulb moments evolve into shining spotlights of success in their educational careers. I can honestly say, without a doubt, that there is no greater reward in my career than seeing children grow and develop as readers and writers. After all, we make sense of the world around us through the things we read, and we impact, influence, and change the world around us through the things we write. Once our youngest learners grasp the power of the written word, there's no holding them back. I don't have to work hard to find joy in early literacy. That joy finds me each and every time I watch a young little mind at work, cracking the code of language and beginning to understand the power it holds to transform their little lives. Early literacy is one of the gifts that gives joy in the present moment and then keeps on giving joy for years to come.
Hi, my name is Jessica Salm, and I am the 2022 Arkansas Teacher of the Year. When I think about early literacy, I think about the joy that can be brought in by sharing a book, not only between educators and students or children, but between families, caregivers, and their children. This offers a way to bond and connect, but also it offers opportunities to open up the door to language and creativity, conversation that can drive just deeper and further discussions that help you connect with the child, help you understand their needs, their excitements, gives a different look into their brain, into the opportunities they may see for themselves in the future, and it allows them to see themselves in characters in a book and connect with those characters in a really unique way. I see so much joy through early literacy and sharing early literacy with children.
Hi, my name is Judy Ramirez, and I am a second grade teacher. Early literacy brings me joy because it is the foundation of everything. Confidence, curiosity, and the courage to explore the world. Watching my students realize that they can read, it is like witnessing a door open to endless possibilities. It's not just about reading books, it's about their belief in themselves. And for me as a teacher, nothing makes me happier than seeing my students gain confidence and realizing that they are just learning and they are achieving new things, and that really the sky is the limit. Early literacy is the heartbeat of lifelong learning, and being a part of that journey is really the best kind of joy.
Hi, my name is Jason Fulmer, and I had the honor of serving as the 2004 South Carolina Teacher of the Year and a finalist for National Teacher of the Year. I'm also the founder of Dream Developer Network, where I've dedicated my work to helping educators and students thrive. Today, I want to share why early literacy brings so much joy. For me, some of the sweetest memories are reading bedtime stories to my nephews. Watching their eyes light up as we journey through stories of adventures and laughter was simply magical. And it reminded me that early literacy is about so much more than just learning to read. It's about discovery and connection. It's the spark in a child's eye when they sound out a new word. It's the pride that they feel in their accomplishments and the confidence that they build along the way. And it's the joy that we feel as parents, teachers, and mentors in sharing those moments. Early literacy brings joy because it creates connections, it sparks imagination, and it lays the groundwork for endless possibilities. Watching a child's dreams take flight through the power of words reminds us that, as educators, we're truly in the dream developing business.
Hello, my name is Cody Gilbert and I teach kindergarten, and I'm answering the question of how does early literacy bring joy? One of my very favorite things to do with my class is to pick a early grades chapter book to read during our shared reading time. So no more than 10 minutes a day, but we go chapter by chapter, and at the end we have this great shared reading experience of a book that's so much more in depth than what we would generally read during our reading block. It just builds so much community and it sparks so much discussion because there's an interval of time between one chapter to the next. So it's bringing them joy as they talk about what's going to happen next or what happened previously. And that joy is found in conversation and love.
My name is Adriana Swearingen, and I'm the 2024 Florida Teacher of the Year. As a classroom teacher, a librarian, and now as a mom of 2 boys under the age of 5, I can attest firsthand to the power and magic of early literacy. Oftentimes, people assume and think that the first time our students are really learning is when they enter kindergarten at 5 years old, and that is actually so far from the truth. That learning begins from 0 all the way leading up to kindergarten, and that is why it brings me so much joy. It's the singing and the dancing, to learning how to tie our shoes or what kindness means. It's making those connections to the real world, back to what's being read to them and what they're eventually going to read and write themselves. And that's why early literacy brings me so much joy.
Hi there, my name is Brittany Montgomery, and I am the 2022 YMA Teacher of the Year. In my opinion, there's unlimited ways to find joy in early literacy. There's the joy of teaching those early skills where kiddos discover that letters make sounds, that sounds put together make words, and that those words put on paper can turn into stories and adventures. And early literacy really unlocks the power within us, and that, books can give us so much opportunity that we might not have in our everyday lives. There's also joy in sharing characters and stories that we read as kids. Some of my greatest moments of joy have been bringing stories that I was read as a little kid and getting to read those with my own children, but also sharing them with students. The joy of reading is just the beginning, and even when it's tricky or if reading isn't something that comes naturally to you, don't give up, because books, especially early literacy books, can change everything. They can take us on adventures. They can introduce us to people and places that we've never been to. So much joy in books. And I hope if you haven't found one that you love yet, that you keep looking, because there's something for everyone out there.
So the question is, how does early literacy bring joy? Well, let me tell you, if you have never stepped foot in a kindergarten, pre-K, VPK classroom, you need to. I started my career as a kindergarten teacher, and there was never a dull moment. There was never a day that I did not look forward to seeing my students smiling and laughing and playing. And guess what? The joy came from them learning. They were so excited to get those early literacy skills, such as reading and labeling, writing, drawing, communicating, storytelling, playing dress up and talking in the centers and collaborating with their partners. That is pure joy for them, because when they're able to read and they have that strong foundation of reading skills, that opens up so many opportunities for them. So, early literacy, it's all about the joy.
Hello, my name is Dominique Foster, and I teach pre-K 4 in Washington, D.C. I'm actually on my lunch break, so I wanted to take a moment to talk about how does literacy bring joy. We just love books, especially in early childhood, baby. We love a good book. And so I love to see that my students just light up and get so excited and anticipate what's going to happen next when you turn the page. And a lot of that, a lot of the joy that they have, really it comes from the adults in their life when we show that we have a love for literacy, and it brings us joy. So I just really am so thankful that I get to engage with young children and really see their love of learning through literacy kind of grow and develop and blossom. And as they get older throughout the school, that I see them with the chapter books and, you know, really moving on to some really cool pieces of literature. But all things that you need in this life are in a book.